I stood up for my wife when her dad showed up drunk at the hospital and kissed our newborn, disrespecting our boundaries. My in-laws have completely turned against me, making wild accusations and so on. Let me explain. For some context, I, 24, and my spouse, 23, both experienced deeply troubled relationships before meeting each other at challenging points in our lives, both financially and emotionally. Like all relationships, we have encountered highs and lows, but we have managed to communicate maturely and effectively. We have been together for 2 years and married for almost a year now. My spouse's family has faced significant struggles throughout her life, including an abusive father who was both physically and emotionally harmful. The family dynamics are quite dysfunctional. Her father has consistently been unemployed, while her mother, a head nurse earning over $100,000, claims to lack even gas money. Conversely, my family is traditional, valuing closeness and communication. If issues arise, we address them directly and talk things through. My family embraces my spouse as one of their own. To add to the complexity, her ex-partner was excessively controlling, even going so far as to block her family's contact. My spouse's relationship with her father has always been tumultuous. He is addicted to prescription drugs, resulting in unpredictable mood swings and outbursts directed at both of us. Early in our relationship, I engaged in discussions with her siblings and parents, assuring them that although they had faced difficulties in the past with her father, I was not a source of concern, and that they would not need to fear any similar separation caused by my actions. However, I often feel as though this fear lingers over me, as if they expect me to repeat past mistakes. Since I entered the picture, I have consistently treated her family with respect. I have not sought to gain recognition for my efforts. Rather, I have willingly assisted them with various tasks, no matter how physically demanding, genuinely viewing them as family. My spouse and I have a newborn, 3 months old, which has complicated matters considerably. During her pregnancy, her family was a significant stressor, with her father making numerous demanding phone calls. Her mother aggressively pushed for a relationship between my wife and her father, despite my wife's unwillingness stemming from years of abuse. The stress from her family during the pregnancy became so overwhelming that it started to affect the health of our baby. Although it became increasingly difficult to respect them, I opted to remain silent, believing it was their family matter to resolve. During her pregnancy, my wife clearly expressed to her family that she did not want any contact with her father, as well as for her dad to have no relationship with the baby, given his unpredictable and reckless behavior as an addict, alongside the abuse he had inflicted on her during her formative years. As time passed, my wife made it clear that she did not want her father present at the hospital for the baby's birth, yet he showed up anyway, even attempting to enter the delivery room while she was in labor. This added significant stress to an already difficult situation. I chose to keep my distance and stay out of it. After we brought the baby home, I encouraged my wife to give her father a chance. Despite her reluctance, she begged him for 3 days to visit the baby. When he finally did come, it was around 1 a.m, and he arrived reeking of alcohol. He ignored our request not to kiss the baby, leading to a heated argument between my wife and him afterward. For additional context, we met when we were both struggling financially. She supported me when I faced difficulties, and I did my best to support her. Our lives changed dramatically in a year. I went from not being able to afford gas to becoming the primary provider, allowing her to stay home with our child and save enough to start looking at houses. We are incredibly grateful for this turnaround. Following the incident with him kissing the baby, a rift formed between my wife and her father. However, he convinced my wife's mother to continue pushing for their relationship. At one point, she claimed that she didn't want to get too attached to the baby because my wife was preventing her dad from being around. Her mother continued to visit occasionally and pressured my wife to reconcile with her father, which led to severe postpartum depression for my wife. This added strain affected our new family dynamic as I balanced the demands of work, managing my wife's depression, and raising our newborn. Her father also persuaded my wife's sister and mother that my wife was to blame for the family issues, asserting, "She's causing our family to be divided, and I feel deeply hurt." To me, this seemed like a manipulation tactic, yet I chose to remain silent. This is where I finally decided to intervene. 2 weeks after the birth of our son, her father called my wife and unleashed a tirade, accusing her of taking advantage of your mom, simply because we needed a brief break. Her mother had come over to provide us with some time to rest. He then called me, insisting that I need to assert myself as the head of the household and support my family, while using vulgar language. I had taken 2 weeks off work to help at home. I managed to stay composed and ended the call. My wife informed me of various accusations her family had thrown her way. They began insinuating that I was preventing her from seeing her parents, asking questions like, "Is this your decision or his? It sounds like you're being kept away," and other insinuations. It made me feel guilty for encouraging my wife to try to mend things, which only led her to more emotional pain. We spent my birthday driving around while she struggled to cope with all of this. I began to withdraw, and my wife understood. I chose not to attend Thanksgiving with her family or her birthday celebrations as I wanted to avoid the drama. Not surprisingly, her father caused further conflict during those occasions, leading to arguments among the family. I felt relieved to miss that chaos. My wife and I often take our baby to visit my family, including my grandmother, who is suffering from severe COPD and is nearly bedridden. I want to make as many memories as possible with her during her remaining days. However, my wife feels unable to visit her family because her parents and sister cause issues and constantly critique my wife's relationship with her father. Recently, my wife's sister called and insisted my wife should make an effort to reconcile. She claimed she cannot be around her parents without our little family becoming the focus of their discussions, and that the situation has been deeply hurting their family. Her sister accused us of using visits to my ailing grandmother as a pretext and asserted that I am controlling my wife and forcing her to spend time with my family out of worship for my father. This remark was a tipping point for me. I found it incredibly disrespectful and joined the conversation, stating, "What have I done? I work hard, mind my business, and have tried to encourage a healthy relationship among you all. This drama is precisely why I've distanced myself." My wife then reached out to her mother, again explaining why she feels she cannot spend time with her father due to his erratic behavior. They argued, and her father, in the background, remarked, "She won't let me see the baby but can take her to see a recovering alcoholic." They abruptly ended the call. I haven't spoken to him since. This took place just a couple of hours ago. His comment referenced my mother, who had struggled with alcohol addiction throughout my childhood but has now been sober for 3 years. I texted him, clarifying, "Not recovering, recovered," and he read it but did not respond. Additionally, I reached out to my sister-in-law, emphasizing that I have never controlled my wife and have actively encouraged her to maintain a relationship with her family. She then began to delve into our past relationship issues, portraying me as a terrible person. I replied, stating, "I would hate to think my life is so dull that I need to meddle in others' relationships. Can you see how unreasonable this is?" No reply. This situation triggered another breakdown for my wife. Coupled with our baby crying, it became chaotic. This marks the first time I have expressed my feelings. I feel guilty for adding stress to my wife's and baby's lives. I told her that I have lost all respect for her family. Every time my wife attempts to reconcile with them, they initially treat her with affection only to later lash out at both her and at me, which is affecting us. Once our son is more aware, it will impact him too. I informed my wife that I do not plan to be around her family again, and if they work things out and she invites them over, I would leave until they depart. I discussed with my wife the necessity of controlling what we allow into our lives, given that these influences could soon affect our child. While I do not dictate whether my wife should have a relationship with her family, I feel strongly that I want no further involvement with them. My wife understands my position, but I know they will likely reach out again, as her family dynamic is toxic and tends to cause her significant emotional distress. I have considered blocking them on all platforms, given their hostility toward me. Am I in the wrong for this? Any advice would be appreciated. Edit. I want to clarify a few points. I've noticed some individuals suggesting that I've already failed as a father. My family, both my wife and child, are always my top priority regarding their mental and physical health and safety. Please consider that we are new parents and we are navigating a learning curve. I acknowledge that I should assert myself more firmly and I greatly appreciate that advice. However, we have only been together for 2 years, and while some may think that's fast, that's simply our pace. I met her family only twice in that first year. They have only just returned to our town, providing me with a clearer view of their true characteristics. We acknowledge that this issue needs addressing promptly. We are fortunate to have recognized their unacceptable behavior early, especially before our son becomes more perceptive. I realize I could have included more details, but I feel like I've already written a lengthy post, so I apologize for any confusion. Also, I find it somewhat strange that people suggest I should force my wife to cut ties with her family. Her childhood was not filled with severe physical violence. If it had been, I would certainly be more assertive. Her main concern is her father, which is entirely justified. I never compelled her to have a relationship with him. Instead, I supported her desire for one. Now that we see their true colors, we are taking action accordingly. I appreciate the input shared here. As a father and husband, my priority has always been the safety and health, both physical and mental, of my family. Cutting ties with literal family is a challenging decision to make, but I appreciate the comments and suggestions. Thank you. Story 2. My boss claims my work, so I forge a memo, prank him with a useless task, his panic in front of the partner. Priceless. This opinion is not acceptable, my supervisor informed me. He had practiced law for 3 years, and the firm had assigned me to him for training so he could show me, as a junior associate, how to become a litigator. I held a disdain for my boss for various reasons. He had a poor grasp of legal principles and struggled to articulate himself effectively in writing. For a litigator, these qualities were major red flags, and he also lacked courage. I realized this when he took me to assignment court one day. During his turn to address the court, I noticed his hands shaking. He appeared terrified in assignment court, where the sole purpose is to set trial dates. "What is incorrect about my writing?" I inquired. "It is not what I requested," he replied dismissively, turning away. However, when I reviewed the memo he had sent me 2 weeks prior, I discovered that my opinion was precisely what he had requested. I understood his intentions. He was planning to erase my dockets associated with the memo and then claim credit for my work, thereby falling significantly short of my docketing quota for the month. I was confident this would happen since it had occurred before. I was aware my memo would end up on a partner's desk without my name attached. I knew this for certain, as the firm I worked for was among the pioneers in the city to establish an efficient internal network. We were utilizing email for internal communication well before the internet became widely adopted. This technological advantage was substantial, but unfortunately, the firm lacked in security, and shortly after my arrival, I figured out how to venture into the firm's hard drive and uncover intriguing details, such as evidence of my boss plagiarizing my work. My supervisor embodied the archetype of a young downtown lawyer. His shoes were always impeccably polished. He donned custom-tailored suits, reflecting his affluent background. Everyone assumed he was on track for partnership. In contrast, I was firmly on the path to mediocrity, which may have led him to believe he could undermine me. If that was the case, it was a significant error on his part. I disliked having my billable hours manipulated. I genuinely resented it, because I was already facing scrutiny as one of the junior associates who was not meeting his docketing expectations, and I had been receiving criticism from the partner leading our team. I brought the issue to the partner's attention, but he showed little concern. It felt reminiscent of middle school when I would arrive at the office with bruises, and the principal would dismiss my plight with a "boys will be boys" mentality. "You'll just have to work harder or work smarter," the partner remarked when I reported the latest unfair treatment I experienced from my supervisor. I couldn't afford to work harder. I was already logging the typical 6-day workweeks expected of downtown lawyers, but I devised a plan to work smarter. With Christmas approaching, I decided to give my boss an unexpected gift. It landed on his desk on December 24th as a memo that falsely appeared to come from the partner to whom my supervisor reported. The partner was an older gentleman who preferred traditional methods to technology, handling everything on paper rather than electronically. Consequently, when my supervisor arrived on December 24th to find a memo from the partner containing a legal research assignment, It seemed entirely ordinary. I took great care to format the memo in the partner's standard style, ensuring its authenticity. My boss proceeded to visit the junior associate's cubicles and handed me the same memo, except that his secretary had retyped it with the assignment modified to show it was from him to me instead of originating from the partner. The assignment was challenging, requiring extensive research into admiralty law, its intersection with common law, and a constitutional division of powers issue. But this assignment is substantial, I complained. I will be unavailable. Can't you assign someone else to it? Is it truly urgent? The memo I had fabricated emphasized the urgent nature of the matter, yet my boss could not confirm it with the partner since he had left for vacation the previous day. That was precisely why I had chosen December 24th for my scheme. No can do, my boss replied. This is important. Just inform human resources. Perhaps they will grant you overtime or something similar. He turned away, believing he had spoiled my holiday season. But he was mistaken. I had authored a paper for a third-year course that covered the same topic as the research assignment noted in the memo. Consequently, my only task was to locate the outdated floppy disk containing the draft, make a few adjustments, and voila, a comprehensive and lengthy memo regarding a nuanced aspect of admiralty law, complete with references tracing back to the era of Lord Coke. I assembled the memo and enjoyed my holidays as initially planned. I was not traveling anywhere due to financial constraints, but I visited my family while remaining in town. I made it a point to drop by the office during the holiday break, sending an email or two to establish my presence, while also recording all of my time for the extensive research I was supposedly conducting. As the holiday season concluded, I found myself in my cramped cubicle staring at a mountain of work when my supervisor approached me, dressed in one of his tailored suits with matching gold cufflinks and tie pin. He was even sporting a gold watch, looking unusually formal, as if attempting to convey a specific image. "Where is that memo? You were supposed to have it on my desk upon my return." "I have a meeting at noon." "I just completed it this morning," I replied, handing him the substantial memo, still warm from the printer. My boss accepted the memo and appreciated its weight, smiling at it. Then he turned and walked away without uttering a single word. Shortly before lunch, I heard a ruckus down the hallway. It was quite loud, marked by an exclamation of, "What the hell?" followed by the sound of a door bursting open. It was the partner, and he was demanding that my boss get into his office immediately. I watched as my boss hurried down the hall in a state of panic. "What the hell is this?" the partner exclaimed, standing in his office doorway, holding my creation at arm's length as if it might contaminate him. My boss stammered some sort of excuse, and then the partner ushered him inside. I heard more shouting, followed by muffled apologies, and then more raised voices from the partner. Eventually, the door swung open once again. "Caladinth 90s, get in here right now," the partner commanded, and I promptly complied. "Did you write this goddamn memo?" the partner demanded. I took it from him and examined it. I authored it. The cover page has been altered to remove my name, but aside from that, it is my work. I dedicated my entire Christmas to it. Is there an issue? The partner lost his temper. Is there an issue? Let me tell you what the issue is. It is utterly worthless, completely useless. I explained that I had adhered to my boss's directives meticulously and that I had logged over 100 hours on it. This revelation sent the partner into a frenzy, demanding I retrieve the memo from my boss. I went back and brought it to him, and upon reading it, his face flushed with anger. He instructed me to leave, and I quickly exited the room. From my cubicle, I was too far away to hear the full extent of the scolding my boss experienced, but I caught wind of the fallout through the grapevine in the following days, learning how the partners were extremely frustrated that my boss had squandered over 100 hours of a junior associate's time on a pointless project that was evidently a prank. The partners wondered how my boss had failed to recognize he was being pranked. Was he foolish? Naturally, I faced no blame since I had been working closely under my supervisor's direction. While my supervisor did not lose his job, I benefited in several significant ways. For one, the partner requested that I send him copies of any memos I authored for my boss, putting an end to my supervisor taking credit for my work. Additionally, my boss ceased tampering with my dockets for my research efforts. To top it off, I received a delayed Christmas bonus for surrendering what was supposed to be my vacation to complete the absurd memo. I truly despised working in that environment, but during challenging times, I would think back to the case of the forged memo, which never failed to elicit a smile.